we should be live now. I am so excited for this interview. My name is Christina Whiteley. You are here live watching our Beyond Balance podcast. If you are watching through Facebook in my Life Transformed group, welcome. Please comment. If you are listening online, we're also so excited that you're here. I'm really excited to share this story for you guys because it's really, really inspirational. You know, not a lot of people have the courage to live life completely in alignment with who they are, their core beliefs, their values, what they want. Like, it's a huge risk to go out there and do something different. And Nadine is one of those people that has built a beautiful life around what she believes in. She's built a life around her gifts and her skills, and she's helped so many others around her be impacted by those. And I met Nadine through, well, actually, if you were just in my last workshop, Life on Your Terms, Nadine had a chance to chat a little bit about her business and what she does. And she teaches expats like myself how to speak Spanish and how to think in Spanish, because it's one thing to learn the language and it's one thing to memorize conjugations. Is that how you say it? Yep. Right? I was like, is that the right word? It's one thing to memorize those things, but it's another thing to go out in public and speak them and have the confidence to speak them and be conversational, right? And so my friend Whitney, who moved to Nicaragua from the US, she built a beautiful home down there. She introduced me to Nadine and said, you know, if you're looking to learn Spanish, this 12-week immersion course is phenomenal. She's like, you will get so much out of it. She's like, I feel like I can go talk to the locals now and I don't feel like an idiot, because that's our biggest fear, right? Is like looking like a total moron. But I'm so excited to have you here, Nadine, and for you to share your story. You are in Ecuador. So I'm going to ask you, what brought you to Ecuador?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for, having me here. It's a real honor to be here with you today. And yeah, so where did it all begin? It's hard to, pinpoint one exact moment, but I do remember, specifically in like high school years, but I think it started even a little bit younger, like preteen kind of. I remember, especially, the summers, it was nice days and like long days, and I'd be outside just kind of like daydreaming of, I don't know, being somewhere else. I just felt like kind of like the whole lifestyle and things, I was living in Calgary, a pretty big city in Canada. That's where I'm from. And it's just, go, go, go. And like all this pressure of different things, right? And you have to like, at that age already think about, okay, what are you going to go and study in university and everything. And I just felt like that wasn't like me, like that's not what I wanted. So, and yeah, I just found myself kind of dreaming about, I don't know, other cultures, other like places in the world. And when it came that time to like graduate from high school and all my friends were kind of getting ready to go to university and things, I didn't have anything that I wanted to study at that time, and I really just didn't want to go to school at that time, to be honest. So I was like, what am I going to do? And so I basically, I just started working and saved up some money to come to Ecuador. I did actually go to Costa Rica first, a couple months, kind of, just experiment with things. And I really liked it. And I was like, okay, so let's go back home, kind of save up some more money, at that time, work, and then I want to do something that's a little bit more like, not just a couple of months. So I saved up and then came to Ecuador, and it was kind of like a random choice as well. It was like I came to do volunteer work at first, so I wanted to have something to do. I was coming on my own and I was only 19 and I barely spoke the language, so it's a little bit scary. Right. But I was like, I'm going to do this, but I want to have something set up when I get there, so I'm not like just completely all alone in Ecuador, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I got like a volunteer opportunity in this like eco lodge, and came down, and I didn't have a return ticket. I did have like kind of like a backup plan, because I wanted to stay here at least 6 months, ideally a year, right? I mean, part of it was to learn Spanish, but also just, again, to kind of experience the culture, right? A different way of living, a different lifestyle, people with different beliefs, and I don't know, different, see things differently, of course, because they're from different backgrounds. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah, it's so interesting, as little kids, we dream these huge dreams, right? And then society like puts a damper on those dreams. Like, you can't just do that. You can't just move away. You can't, but why can't you? Like, there's nobody that's stopping you. And I think that when you realize that the life that you're living today is one that you have created from a series of decisions, small decisions over time, you realize that you also have the ability to change that at any point in time as well. And I don't know, do you know this? You might not know this, but I've heard that Ecuador is actually quite favorable for digital nomads, for people to come from other countries and come live there. It's like quite beneficial, I think, tax-wise, to do that as well.
Yeah, I've heard about that recently. I think it is a recent, change that they've made, and opening up. I think there's some sort of visa you can get now as a digital nomad, and
Yeah.
also the taxes. I mean, in general, Ecuador is, there's not many taxes compared to other countries, but yeah, I think added benefits if you come as a digital nomad. Yeah.
Well, that's what's really interesting about this time, right? Is that a lot of countries like Italy offers a digital nomad visa. I know that I just had friends go to Prague because there's 10 years of some sort of tax exemption. I'm not saying it's tax free, but like that it's very low, right? Same like in Canada, we pay, if you actually like run your taxes, you're paying close to 50% tax on everything that you make. Plus you're paying a VAT tax, plus you're paying a luxury tax if you buy any luxury items, plus you're paying property taxes, and it's all on taxed money, right? So like the average Canadian brings home 35 cents on the dollar that they make. And I don't know if people actually realize why they're broke, and the cost of living, like the cost of living keeps going up. And they're like, why can't I afford anything? And it's because all of these taxes have been placed. And so one of the reasons that we came to Mexico is the highest tax bracket in Mexico is 35%. So like that's the most you'll ever pay. But we also felt that our dollar could go farther here. We thought that we would be able to, have more life experiences with our daughter. We'd be able to afford to do more trips. We'd be able to afford to do more things and give her a higher quality of life. She could do all the sports as opposed to, like gymnastics down here for for a term is $100 a month. Whereas like in Canada, it can be up to $600 a month, depending on what kind of services that you're getting, right? And so it allowed us a higher quality of life. But one of the big things that we were really concerned about was not being able to speak the language. And it was really important to me that I would learn that and be able to like communicate with like all the locals that are out there and be part of the community. And so tell me a little bit about how you came up with this idea to teach expats how to speak Spanish online. You've got a team of people that help you around the world, right? And so tell me a little bit about how this all came to be.
Yeah, definitely. So it really started with my journey, right? I mean, going back to like I was saying in high school, when that seed, I guess, somewhere, I don't know how it was planted, but was planted about, going somewhere else and traveling somewhere else. I mean, I was definitely like the first kind of only person, in my family, extended family, that had done anything like that. But I took Spanish in high school, and I was really interested in it. I really enjoyed it. But of course, it's all like textbook and you never really use it. But so after I graduated, I went to Cuba with some friends. And that was like my first trip, on my own, sort of. And outside of
fun.
It was really fun. But I realized really quickly that, I really knew no Spanish, right? Like anything I would try to say, nobody understood me. If they would say something to me, I didn't understand them. So it's like, okay, so I really need to get more serious about it and, really dive into this, because it did at least tell me or show me that I really do enjoy the language and I wanted to learn more, right? Yeah. So then, as I was saying, I actually went to Costa Rica first for a couple of months, and did what they call an immersion program for a month, which is quite intensive. It's like 5 or 6 hours a day for 5 days a week, but it's all classroom teaching, and it was only native speakers, that were teaching us. So I was like, I didn't expect to be fluent after that, but I did expect to be like conversational, sure, right? But by the end of the month, my conversation was basically the same as it was when I started. Like I knew more vocabulary, right? I knew more grammar, but that was pretty much it. So it was super frustrating. And at that point, I just decided, I'm just going to like speak with the people, just kind of go about it on my own and, learn what I can and just speak with people. Exactly.
And that's so funny, like how you describe that, because most people like they'll memorize words. Like I know a lot of Spanish words, and I'll pick it up in sentences because people speak very quickly, just like we speak quickly in English, right? And so they speak very quickly, and you'll pick up a word, but then you'll be like, but what about the next word? Like just right? And so I totally understand that you can see the words, but they don't all string together, and that's what you do excellently. Is that even a word? I don't know. But that's like something that you do like very, very well, is help people understand conversation and be able to speak conversation to other people so that you're not just sitting there memorizing sentences.
Right, exactly. That's what I found was like happening, or that I was doing. And yeah, it wasn't giving me the results, like, to actually apply it in conversation that I wanted. So yeah, that was for the first month. The second month that I was there, I just, I continued doing volunteer. I did all volunteer opportunities then as well. And I would just, speak with the people. And, it wasn't like really quick, but I did notice I was learning more. I could actually begin to have, really basic conversations compared to after a month of the immersion program. Like none of that was happening, right? After that, it was time to, go back home to Canada. And, I was 19 and everything I was paying on my own. And I was just, so I was like, okay, let's get back to work, kind of save up. And then I was like, I'm definitely doing this and I'm staying longer and I'm going kind of all in, right? So that's how I kind of got prepared to come to Ecuador, came to Ecuador, kind of continued with that same, method or idea of just mostly just using it and speaking with people. Eventually I became fluent. I mean, there's some other things that I did along the way that kind of, just speaking, there were some things that were kind of missing or I wasn't picking up on, right? So I did have to do, investigate a little bit more and kind of teach myself a bit more in order to actually become fluent. But then, I was already teaching English at this point, and I started teaching Spanish as well. And I did that for about 7 or 8 years. I was living here, I ended up staying, I never really went back. And so I was doing that first locally, then online. And then I got to the point where I was just like not feeling it anymore. I was not passionate about it. And it really like confused me. I didn't understand why, because I like teaching, I like working with people, I love the languages in general, but something was off, So I took a year off of teaching altogether and just did like other things. And I started to think back, what did work for me and what didn't, right? And what did I notice other people around me who were going through the same process, that worked for them and didn't. And I investigated, did some research as well on different ways of learning, and also did a couple of courses on neuroscience and neurolinguistics. And that just, all of that kind of gave me a completely different view, right? Of like what is possible and how things actually work, how your brain works. And then, so I kind of took all of that information and, put it together to create the program that I have now. And it's amazing.
Here's the thing, like what you just described is what I teach people in finding the gap, right? There's people out there that are teaching Spanish everywhere, right? There's people out there that are teaching entrepreneurship everywhere. But what is the gap that is not being filled right now? And so you saw that these programs were not set up in a way that were easily learnable. They were not set up in a way that even if you were immersed, you could pick it up and use conversation. And you actually got the skill set, right? You went in and you took some classes and got the skill set so that you could tie these together and become the gap in the marketplace. Like that is how you build business, and that's how you build big business. Because right now we're talking about scaling your business because I love what you do and I think it's brilliant, right? I think everybody should have access to you and your team. So it's so cool to hear you talk about like you saw what wasn't working and you took the time yourself. Most people don't do this, right? To take the time to dig in and be like, what is it? And what's really cool, and and I didn't think about this either. It wasn't until I read the book Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey that I actually started to value that time off. That time off, that year you gave yourself was such a blessing to hone your skills, to think about and brainstorm how you wanted to move forward. Like that gap of time as well is so valuable. And most people don't take it because they're so busy and they think if they work harder, they'll just be able to see it through. But it's been really interesting over the last few years, and I'm going to say too, moving to another country, a lot of people will look at your life online or whatever and be like, oh my God, you're so lucky. Sunshine and rainbows everywhere. And sure, the weather is beautiful, right? But it's challenging. Life is challenging no matter what. Like you said, you had to go back, and you were young too, but you had to go back to Canada multiple times to load up the bank account, come back down. And we've seen people do that too here in Cabo. Like they come down, and by the way, Cabo is like one of the most, like if you're trying to save money somewhere, Cabo is one of the most expensive places to live in Mexico. It is not somewhere that you come to save money. But we've seen people come and go from here and come back and go and come back and go and like really try and make it work, because you're going to have bad times in those places too. You're going to have challenges in those places too. There's going to be times where you're like, oh, should I just go back? And whenever, I'm sure there were times in this process that you're like, oh, maybe I'll just go back to teaching in a classroom because it would be so much easier than forging forward and like creating this own path, right? And that is entrepreneurship, is moving through the difficult challenges that most people will just say, oh, I'll put that away for another day, or I'll let somebody else deal with it, right? But you move through these challenges and created this really, really great program. So do you want to talk a little bit about your program and how you help people?
Yeah, of course. So well, like you say, I kind of just saw that gap. I mean, I didn't really realize that that's exactly what was happening right in that moment. But I did realize, I mean, this is the same thing that happened to me. And I was teaching people, and I was realizing that the same thing was happening to, my students. Yeah, they were improving their vocabulary and their grammar, but, the conversation wasn't there. And so, yeah, I ended up realizing like something's missing. And I know I'm not the only one who wants what's missing, right? And who could use that help that I didn't have. And so, yeah, so from there, the program that I have now, what we do, like the main thing that you do in the program is converse with native speakers.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of like the opposite of the way, most programs or classes are set up. It's like study, practice, learn the grammar, right? And then, okay, go out when you feel ready or, and use it. Like, I feel like a lot of people treat the conversational aspect as like a test, right? It's like, it's all about preparing for that. Yeah. And then going out and doing that. But then when you go out and have those conversations, if it doesn't go the way you expected, or you don't remember, everything that you learned, then it's like, okay, well, I failed the test. Let's go back to the books, right? But this is like, completely different approach. It's like, no, conversation, using it as a way of learning. And I really believe that, again, it's really kind of how our brains were designed to learn, right? Through the interaction, through hearing it. It's how we learn our native languages, right? Listening to people around us, copying what they're saying it back, right? And sometimes they'll correct us, or if they kind of understood what they're saying, great. So I guess it worked. Let's keep going, right? So yeah, I have a team of native speakers, as you mentioned, and they do the conversation practice sessions, of course. So you get that, direct relationship or connection with the native speakers. And of course, they're modeling the pronunciation and everything. And then we do coaching calls. So they'll have coaching sessions with me every few weeks to check in, see how everything's going. If they're having any challenges, then that allows me to give different suggestions, right? Of things they can do on their own time, or also like it is very personal, customized as well, what we do. So yeah, if, comprehension is something that you're finding is more challenging. So also on our end, in the conversations and the lessons, it's like, okay, how can we change things to kind of work with your natural learning style, right? Your strengths.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up, is that your program is very multifaceted. It's not just conversations every single week, multiple times a week, but like here's exposure to Mexican or Spanish news. Here's exposure to, like, you start watching movies with subtitles, right? Either watch Spanish movies with English subtitles or watch English movies with Spanish subtitles, which is sometimes what we do. Or Izzy will put on cartoons, or we'll watch half and half. Like some movies are half in English, half in Spanish, and then we kind of watch back and forth. But like exposing yourself to that, because not everybody learns the same way. Not everybody learns from reading. Sometimes they learn from audio, right? And I was going to liken this to like learning when you learn music. I look at music, reading, listening, sight singing, all that kind of stuff. I look at that as another language. And so if you look at like, okay, I've got to learn how to play an instrument. You want it to sound great, but you have to learn all the technique behind the background, and that practice that you do every day. It's not looking at the music. It's not just looking at the notes. It's the practice, the muscle memory, the comprehension of what it should sound like around other people in a choir, right? Or in a band. And so all of that kind of pieces together, and it doesn't happen without that constant practice and that constant evolution forward, with the little bumps, like if you need corrections along the way. And that's part of the reason that I absolutely love your program. I think it's super valuable to people, and it's quick, right? A 12-week program that you'll get so much more out of it than if you're studying once a week for months and months and months, right? Do you want to just let me know where, or let them know where they can find you, or how they can connect with you about this?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, Facebook's probably the best place.
I'll tag you in this video.
Yeah, perfect. I think you're in our group, actually. So we have a complimentary group that would probably be the best place to go, because, I do live classes and trainings every week, every Wednesday. So you can tune into those. And then, of course, we also share, strategies and other exercises and things like that as well. We sometimes have actually some of our native speakers come in like as a kind of special guest, and we'll do a live interview. So you can practice the listening, right? Ask them questions and things like that. So it's called the Spanish Mind. The Spanish Mind Facebook group. Of course, you can also visit our website, which is www.spanishtofluency.com. But yeah, the group, is a good place to go to get a lot of value and to learn more about what we do as well.
Awesome. And I will encourage you, if you're somebody that wants to learn how to speak Spanish and you want to be able to communicate in your community, or it's just a goal that you've had in your life, I encourage you to reach out to Nadine. She's amazing at what she does. Her team is amazing and very patient. And I just really appreciate how you're helping people out there. The impact that you're making is huge for those of us that are starting to move around the world, because I really believe that in a time such as this, with technology and access to the globe, that more and more people will start moving to places that align with their core values. Will start moving to places where they have tax exemptions so that they're not being buried by taxes. They're going to start moving to places that allow them a higher quality of life. I don't think luxury is defined the way that it was before, and like having a nice house and a nice car and nice toys. I think luxury is owning your time, is allowing yourself to choose what you do with that time, whether it's with family or friends, or whether you're working on a big project to help other people, right? And so I really appreciate how you've turned a passion of yours and really thought diligently about how you could truly help people with that. Because there's a lot, by the way, there's a lot of people out there selling stuff online. There's a lot of people out there selling Spanish courses, right? But the reason I want to highlight your business is because you've actually done the work to create results for your clients. And that is so rare in the sea of noise that is going on out there. So I'm going to encourage you to get together with Nadine. If you are watching, you have any comments, please comment in the video below. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. Make sure you share this with a friend that wants to learn Spanish. And Nadine, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure, really. Like I said, I mean, I appreciate you and having me here. And it's kind of a little bit surreal being here as well, as you talk about the journey to get here, thinking back. And like you said, it's sometimes like that one decision, like that decision that I made to just come to Ecuador. I never would have imagined, right, any of this would have happened. So I think as well, for anyone who is listening, like if you feel, called to do something, or you feel like something is not right, like when I took that year off, like listen to yourself, right? To your intuition, and just go for it. Yeah. And, you might need support.
Yeah.
You might need support, right? Someone like, who can help you through it. I definitely had a lot of support and mentors as well, to get me here. But yeah, I'm really happy with where I am now, and appreciate you and being here today.
Good. I'm so happy. We'll do this again, Nadine. Thank you so much. Thank you again for coming to listen to our Beyond Balance podcast. My name is Christina Whiteley, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.